Okay, so we created the board class, and now let's make the knight move on it. Of course, the moves will be random, so we need a random number generator first. So I have my class, I'll make it public, and like I said, we need a random number generator. Okay, next, we need to keep track of the knight's position. Now the position is a cell corresponding with the row and column index, so we could create an array with 2 indexes to store that information. However, I will store the horizontal and vertical positions in 2 separate variables. I think it's just easier to keep track of it this way. So here's my current position for horizontal and current position for vertical variables. And of course, we will need the board object. So here's my object, which I will instantiate in the constructor. So our board simply creates a new object of board. Alright, I'm still not done with the variables though. I need 2 Boolean variables. One that will be set to true once a complete tour is reached, and one that will be tracking progress of each tour and ended if the knight has no available moves possible. So by default, we can set them both to false. And finally, we need to keep track of statistics. We need to have a counter for our incomplete tours. And remember, we want to display the board on the screen each time our current tour resulted in more moves than our previous best tour. Now, these 2 variables can be made static simply because they will be updated constantly, and we only need 1 instance of each to be updated. So our best score simply stores the most number of moves made in 1 tour so far. And tour count simply counts all the incomplete tours. And there's one more variable, and that is the counter for our moves within each tour. So it's a simple integer. Alright, so we have all we need, and now let's start creating our main loop. Now, since we are using a simple brute force approach, we will simply loop until the full tour is made. And I'm going to use a simple while loop for that. So I have my public method, and in it I'll start my while loop, and I will loop until the full tour is made. Or I will loop while it is not a full tour. So like I said, while full tour is false, meaning we didn't reach the full tour yet, we will continue to loop. Now there's a few things we need to do before we actually move or attempt to move the knight. First, we need to set the knight's initial position. This is going to be done before every new tour is started. Remember, if we have an incomplete tour, meaning we have to end the tour because no more moves are possible, we want to reset everything and start a new tour. So first, we randomly generate a new starting position for the knight on the board. And we do so for both horizontal and vertical coordinates. So we randomly generate our horizontal and our vertical positions. Next, since we just placed the knight on the board, we reset the move counter to 1. Basically, we consider placing the knight on the board as the first move because there's 64 squares on the board and this is one of them. So we will need 63 more to consider it a full tour. Alright, next we have to populate the array with empty cells and place the knight in the array as well. Remember, empty cells are represented with a dot character and the knight is the X character, so our array will hold 63 dots and 1 X, which will be placed in the horizontal and vertical coordinates we just generated. So we will have our board object to call the populate method, and we will place the position for the horizontal and vertical. Alright, there's one more thing, and we need to reset our boolean for isEnd tour. This boolean is set to true after each incomplete tour after no more moves are possible. So we want to set it to false before each tour starts. Alright, now we need another loop for each individual tour. Our while loop simply runs the program until a full tour is made. But we also need a loop that will control each individual tour, and we need to run the loop until we no longer can make any move, meaning until isEnd tour is true. Or, in our case, we will run it while isEnd tour is false, because we are going to use do while loop. So here's my do loop, and in our while condition, we will simply loop while each tour is being false. Now in the body of the loop, we simply need to make a move and make sure that the move is possible to be made. And instead of placing all that code inside here, I will create methods and I will call them from here. So I'll start with a method that returns true or false if the knight is moving. Now before we evaluate each move, we need to discuss few details on how each move is being made. You may be tempted to simply make the first move that is possible from our array of moves. So if the first move is possible, we make it. If not, we move to the next one and see if that one is possible. And if it is, we make the move. If not, we make the next one and so forth. And we can do so until we exhaust all the moves that the knight could theoretically make. If we reach the last move and cannot make it, then we know that no move is possible and we end the tour. It sounds like a good approach, right? But let me just show you why it wouldn't work. So imagine we start from the first position of the green X. Now our first possible move is 2 up and 1 left. So we end up over here. Now we can make it, so we'll make the move, no problem. So that is simply our first move from the array, 2 up and 1 left. So then we check the second move from our array, which is 2 up and 1 right. So we would end up over here, which is outside of the board. We can make it. So never mind, we'll go to the next one instead. So the third possible move from our array would be 1 up and 2 right instead. So we'll do 1 up, 2 right. Yeah, it's within the board. We'll make our third move because we skipped the second because we couldn't make it. The fourth, it would be -1 and 2, which is down 1 and 2 to the right, simply following the sequence of the moves from our array. So far so good, right? So we'll make our 8 moves and then we'll continue again and again. But what if the tour is incomplete? At some point we will simply find no more possible moves when following any of the moves from our arrays. So we have an incomplete tour and we want to start another, right? So we'll generate another start position and go to another tour. However, there is only 64 starting positions that we can generate on the board. And the problem is that if we use sequential order of moves based on the moves stored in the array, if neither of the 64 tours result in a full tour, we have a serious problem because, remember, we loop until full tour is made. But each of the tours follows a predefined path, so no matter how many times we try, every tour will simply repeat the same sequence of the moves because the moves don't change. So if we start from here second time, we will follow exact same path. So third time, exact same path. And it applies to every square on the board. If you follow a sequence from the array, it's a predefined path every single time. So now we will have an infinite loop because the tour will never be full. We can never complete it. So what we need to do is to generate the moves randomly. That way, the possible path from any given starting point is different each time we try, because each time some of the moves will be different and the conditions for available moves will be different too. But now we have another problem. There are 8 possible moves that knight can make. So how do we know if we tried all 8 if it is determined randomly? Imagine that our knight is here, where the green K is. And we generate a move that would result for the knight to land on the cell that it came from. So that would be already our third move. We started from here, made the first move, the second, and now we're trying the third one, but it leads back to the same cell we came from. So it's an invalid move. So we generate another one, but it results in outside the board move, so we cannot make it. Let's say it was 2 down and 1 left, so that would be outside of the board. So we generate another move, and it's the same as before, so once again we cannot make it. But now we already tried 3 moves, but 2 of them were even the same. In other words, there's a chance that we generate repeated moves, and if we generated 8 such moves, it doesn't actually mean we tried all possible moves yet. Like, for example, here we still have 3 possible moves, even though we could go going back and forth trying to do moves that we cannot make. So what we need to do is to keep track of all moves we make, and if we generate a move we already tried, we will not count that move. We will simply disregard it. And we only end the tour if all 8 possible moves were tried, regardless of how many repeated moves were generated.